Do you plan out your book in advance? Do you plan out your book in advance with notes and stuff like that?
Good question.
Or do you just write?
How many people in this room, by the way, actually are writing? I mean, okay. How many of you outline? Outline. Do an outline. Okay. How many of you don't do that? A little more than half don't do that. I'm kind of a little bit in between. I know the beginning and I know the end. By the way, there's no right answer to that question. It's whatever makes you right. Oh, again. I know the beginning, I know the end. For example, I knew how that wife appeared on the computer screen in that Tell No One book I just mentioned. In the beginning, I know the end. I compared to driving from my hometown of Newark, New Jersey to LA. I may take Route 80. Chances are I'll go via the Suez Canal or stop in Tokyo, but I pretty much always end up in LA. E.L. Doctorow has my second favorite quote on writing. Elmore Leonard had my first. And that is that writing is like driving at night in the fog with just your headlights on. You can only see a little bit ahead of you, but you can make the whole journey that way. So that said, The Woods, which I think was number 15 or 16, I couldn't figure out the ending. I had these 4 kids go in the woods, and 2 ended up, everybody thought they were all dead, and 1 came back, and like, I don't know what happened in the woods. I just didn't know. So I started to write it. And about page 200, one of the characters was kind enough to tell me. So my point is that even after that, I will find new ways to write. Anything that gets me writing works for me. And I ride that out like a horse until it collapses and it doesn't work anymore, because that happens. And then I got to find a new horse to ride. Good question, thank you. Yes?
How regimented is your daily routine of work?
I'll repeat the question so it's easier than running up. I think right here. How regimented is my
daily
Phil
routine.
Donahue? Kohler, yeah. How regimented is my daily routine? I work my best when my routine is very regimented. My best days are I have 4 kids, and I get the second one goes to a private school. I drop them off at the private school. Lately, I've been going to, I'm not making this up, a Starbucks in an A&P. Glamour. It's a glamorous profession. Really what I do. And I've been writing there. I usually write from around 8:30 to around noon. I then will work out at the gym that's nearby. I'll eat lunch and maybe catch a couple hours in the afternoon sometimes if it's a good day. If not, I will stop then. Those are my best days. That said, I'm also a streak writer. So I say it takes me about 9 months usually to write a book. I compare it to childbirth. The best part's the idea. Explain to this guy, some days you feel great, and some days you feel like a dump truck parked in your bladder. At the end, ladies can help me here, you just want the dang thing out. I think it was our second kid. I remember getting to the hospital with my wife, and the doctor's not there yet. And I'm doing that, the FM modulated voice that drives you women crazy, that we've been trained to do in those Lamaze classes. Lamaze who discovered that breathing was an adequate substitute for pain medication, obviously a man. And you sit there, I'm talking to my wife, I'm like, honey, don't worry. I called the doctor, he's on his way. And my wife was like, I don't care if the janitor lives, get it out! And that's the same thing with the book. So if it's 500 pages long, at the 8-month mark, if I'm on page 250, I'm pretty happy. All right, the last 250 very quickly. I usually write the last 100 pages in a week. I usually write the last 40 or 50 pages in one day. It's not a pretty day. It's not a day you want to hang with me. My kids are like, throw daddy a banana and run. But again, everyone's different. As long as you're writing, producing pages, that's all that kind of matters. Way in the back.
Any thoughts on characterization, creating great characters?
That's a good question. Any thoughts on characterization? You know, it's funny. I used to do a little bit on that. And again, it's one of those things in the back of my mind while I'm saying it, it's like, that's not really it. Like, oh, it's a mosaic. I take this person to... I don't know how to create characters. It's one of those things that's really intuitive. There's 2 things I will tell you though. One is you have to create, there's always that question, chicken and egg question of character versus plot. I choose plot. Not because my books are heavily plotted, though they are. I learn about the characters from the plot. I learn about my characters by how they react to what goes to happen to them in the plot. So if you ask me that chicken and egg question, I usually answer plot first. The key for me with characters, and I've gotten to think better at them as I've gotten older, is that they have to be real. I don't really care anymore if they're nice. They used to have nice heroes. Now it doesn't have to be. In fact, it's better when they have the more kind of foibles they have. When I created Myron Bolitar, one of the reasons I named him Myron was because that's a really nerdy name. And I thought, this guy's going to be so cool. And he's going to have a really nerdy name, Myron. Well, it turns out he's as insecure as his creator, and he's goofy and doofy and makes a lot of mistakes, and that's what makes him come to life. Not that he's sort of the perfect private eye. Yeah, he has the good line, but he screws up a lot. So the thing I try to keep in mind is that character has to be real. I also don't know a lot necessarily about them when I start off consciously. Subconsciously I do. I'm more that iceberg kind of thing. You can see this, I know all this below. But like Elizabeth George, I hear, writes 50-page outlines and biographies on her. You know, she can tell you what they had for breakfast December 7th, 1962, and what their first kiss was. I don't really know that unless you kind of ask me. So to me, that's the hardest part. It is more intuitive, and it is more how they react to the plot and making them go. Good question. Very good questions. Yeah.
And the voice of Myron and narrating those books, it's like I've heard you say it's like a kind of hybrid between first and third person.
Yeah.
And when I'm reading it, I expect to hear some like first person stuff come out of there.
Yeah.
How do you can you say something about that? Like how you came about that?
Yeah. One of the things. First of all, I guess there's a rule of writing that when you know all the rules, you're allowed to break them. I sort of started off naive. I wanted to do Myron in first person, but I also my background was suspense. What I tried doing when I first wrote the Myron Bolitar novels, my goal was to combine what I loved about those kind of private eye novels, which is that great character you want to hang out with all the time, but not cheating people with these kind of crappy plots that a lot of the guys were doing, where it's the girl comes in the office and they start off. So I want to do what I've done with my standalones now, with that kind of suspense plotting with that. So I thought that was going to mean that I have to leave Myron's perspective sometime. And some of the early ones I did a lot, because it went on and on, I didn't. So that was kind of why I wanted to do it. I wanted to have a wisecracking first person, but have the ability to go in somebody else's head. So I cheated and did third person, but it was like first person. I don't know if anybody else does it. I just kind of invented it. And then when I wrote Tell No One, I started the book in first person, and about 50 or 60 pages in, I wanted to go to third person. And of course, the rule is you can't do that. But I did it. And it wasn't like a chapter here, then like back and forth like Patterson does, I guess, I'm told. I did like 50 pages first person, 8 pages third person, 70 pages first person, 90 pages third. I just did whatever I thought would work for a story. I don't necessarily recommend that. I mean, it was my 10th written novel when I did that. But it's really whatever feels right for the story is how I kind of do it. Yeah, anybody else? Right here.
Is there a big difference between writing a series versus a standalone? Do you find it easier sometimes to make plots for my own, or do you tend to get trapped?
It's both. They're both equally hard. I mean, I go through the same neurotic process I just explained to you for both. With Myron, it's kind of like you're doing a painting, to compare to painting, and some of the pieces are already filled in for you when you start. That's both makes it easier, but it also makes you, a little more, you can't just do whatever you want, as you can in a third person thing. I have not yet found out which is easier and which is harder. I can get into Myron's skin faster than I can get into this new person's skin on that to do. A lot of people ask why I stopped writing Myron for a long time, why I moved to standalone, and what the deal is there. And just to kind of tell you, I had written 7 Myron Bolitar novels. And today this is advice for people who want to write a series. Again, this is my own personal opinion, doesn't necessarily have to be yours. I don't think writers today want Hercule Poirot or Sherlock Holmes or a character who just solves crimes and doesn't age or change. I know I have no interest in that, writing that. I always wanted it to be, each Myron book, I didn't want him just to solve a crime. I wanted him to, he ages and grows. The first book, I think Myron's 28, and in Live Wire, he's over 40. And I wanted that. So the problem with that is I always wanted to be a personal Myron Bull. I always wanted to be that special episode of Blossom Myron Bull. The problem with that is how many catharses can a man go through before he's unrealistic and not interested in writing. So after 7 books, and I put him through a lot, the dead girlfriend, having a kid maybe, blah, 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 he kind of looked at me and I kind of looked at him and he's like, well, I can need a little space. And then again, I explained to you how I don't start with a character, I start with an idea. I had that idea for Tell No One about the man with the wife who died. And of course, Myron didn't have a wife who died. So I put Myron aside and I decided to write Bette. What's interesting, that's ended up selling a lot more than my Myron Bolitar books, so it was a good move. But the other reason I wanted to do it was pure ego. I wanted to prove to myself I could write something other than Myron, and I had this dream about one day having 40 Myron Bolitar novels and nothing else to show for it. And so I might as well try to do that. kind of now. And then I didn't want to go back to Myron for the wrong reason. It took me 6 years and 6 books to go back. I didn't want to go back to make a balloon mortgage payment. You know, I didn't want to go back, you know, where Myron and Wynn are on the Himalayas and only they can stop the Matterhorn from going on. I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want to do the Gilligan's Island, plays the Harlem Globetrotters version of a Myron book. So when I came up with that idea for Promise Me, I explained before about the man who makes that. So, well, what person would I know would make that kind of promise to somebody and really not tell the parents they did it? Well, Myron's that moronic. Time to bring him back. I'm just skip 6 years of his life. More than you wanted to know.
Yeah.
Okay. Gentlemen here.
Yeah, you said in the morning you will start out rewriting before writing.
Usually, yeah.
How do you avoid the Voltaire problem of getting mired in what you've already written, rewriting all morning, or thinking it's terrible and not being able to write new stuff?
Well, usually, what normally happens is when I'm doing the rewrite, I like it more than I thought I would. Usually, for me anyway, when I finish writing, I go, oh my God, this is going to suck so bad. And then I give it a night, and the next day, you know, it's not that bad. This can be okay. So it actually works for me the opposite way. And I've also learned over the years that it's never as good as I think it is, and never as bad as I think it is. You know, my book comes out on a bigger level. The first reviews we get are Publishers Weekly. Okay, so Publishers Weekly, you know, I've had books that they've crapped on and books that they've adored, and there's been no rhyme or reason for it. It has had nothing to do with the sales or how good a book is. And I've learned that you just can't pay that much attention to it. I remember Tell No One was supposed to be my big breakout book. It was getting so much buzz and all these things were happening. And it was selling in foreign countries, and I'm so excited. My publishing houses and my print runs way up. And then a Publishers Weekly comes out and just wrecks it. If you really want to read a bad review sometime of a book that sold a ton, I think there's 8 million of those in print right now, they hated it. They said it was, I remember one of the great quotes was, has the emotional heft of a Rockford File episode. And I'm in London right now. It's a Rockford as well. And I'm in London on book tour, and I'm so depressed about it. And the head of my new publishing house comes in the room, and he slaps me in the back and goes, "Congratulations on the PW." I'm like, what? They always get it wrong. We're not guaranteed this book is going to be your big break. And on a personal level, I have to do that too. I don't really know my own work all that well. And in fact, when I just finished this one, I kind of like, it's not that good. I'm not sure it can work. And then the first reviews have all been starred. I'm like, no, maybe it's the best thing I've ever read. Alfred, you get that too, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can tell.
Right, you just can't. So the key is don't worry about it, all right?